We'd like to call the meeting to order. If you would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you will remain standing for a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the public hearing for the fiscal year budget. I'd like to call the public hearing to order. You don't have an agenda?
Do you need an agenda? Oh, you're good. All right.
Are there any questions or comments on the 2019 proposed budget? We've had several work sessions on it and discussed it at length. At this time, is there any public comments on the 2019 budget? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Clerk Rowe, resolution.
I have a resolution number 2018-34 for the 2019 fiscal year budget, and whereas the Township Supervisor has prepared and submitted to the Township Board the proposed budgets for calendar year 2019, it should say. And whereas the Township Board has advertised the tentative millage rates in the Washtenaw Legal News and held the public hearing on December 4th of 2018 on the budget, and the tentative millage rate pursuant to Section 16 of the Uniform Budgeting Accounting Act, Truth in Budgeting, and whereas the Township Board has reviewed the proposed tax rates and budgets, now therefore be it resolved, the Charter Township Ypsilanti Board of Trustees adopts the 2019 fiscal year budget by cost center as follows. It has expenditures for the General Fund 101, and they're listed from the Township Board down to other financing uses for a total in the General Fund expenditure of $8,893,104. And for the Fire Department Fund 2006, for a total of $6,194,960. And for the Park Commission Fund 2008, $6,973. And for the Bike Path, Sidewalk, Recreation, Roads, Operations Fund 212, $1,625,545. And for Environmental Services Fund 226, $3,017,029. And for the Recreation Fund 230, $811,263. And for 14B Court Fund 236, $1,805,815. And for the Housing Business Inspection Fund 248, $293,707. And for the Building Department Fund 249, $854,557, and for the Local Development Finance Authority Fund 250, it's $225,270, and for Hydro Station Fund 252, $443,974, and for Law Enforcement Fund 266, $7,660,706, and for the DEP 2006 Bond Fund 398, $234,840. For the Golf Course Fund 584, $757,022. For Compost Fund 590, $564,565. For the Motor Pool Fund 595, $245,132, and for the Nuisance Abatement Fund 893, $28,597, for a total amount of all funds and all departments $33,663,059. Be it further resolved that the revenues, transfers in, and appropriations of prior year fund balances are estimated as follows. The revenues and transfers in for the general fund has a total, the transfer in is $181,865 for a total of $8,931,489. And the revenue, or the transfers in, there's no transfers in for the fire department, so theirs remains the same. The Park Commission Fund is $7,000. And transfers in for the, where am I at? Transfers in for the bike path, sidewalk, recreation, roads, and operations there's appropriation, not a transfer, 242,682 for a total of $1,625,545. For the environmental services, 226, it's $3,017,029. Recreation fund, $811,263. The courts, $1,807,324. The building rental inspection program is $293,707. The building department fund, 249, is $858,500. The LDFA fund, 250, stays the same at $225,570. The hydro station fund is $481,000. The law enforcement stays the same at $7,663,576. Debt fund for the 2006 debt for the bond fund of $398 is $234,840. The golf course funds has a transfer in of $213,422 and also appropriation of a prior year fund balance of $30,000, taking the total to $757,022 for the golf course fund. The compost fund, $590, has revenues of $479,600 with a appropriated prior year fund balance of $84,965 for a total of $564,565. The motor pool fund stays the same at $263,897, and the nuisance abatement is $30,000 for a total grand total of all funds expected to be received and spent in 2019 of $33,974,912. I would so move resolution number 2018-34 for and approve the 2019 fiscal year budget as presented.
Support.
We have a motion and support to approve the budget. Are there questions or comments regarding it? Just as a quick review, the values, taxable values increased 7.4% for 2019 projections. The state shared revenue increased 1.6%. For expenditures, we have employees receiving a 3% wage increase. Healthcare rates increased 22.4%. Dental care rates increased 10%. Vision increased 15%. It's the first increase we've had in years. Disability rates decreased. Life insurance rates increased $29 per person. The annual contribution for MERS increased 1.1%, and we've actually budgeted to put additional dollars to help pay that amount down. And for our MERS on the township, it's at 73% funded, so that's a good position. The OPEB retiree health care contribution increased 4.89%. So the increase ratio on that is at 51.6%. The fire pension had the largest increase in the ARC for the pension, and that's because they changed the retirees. People are living longer. It's called a mortality improvement scale, and that affected the ARC, or where they go out and they do the assumptions, and they also lowered the assumption for the investment rate. It was at 7.25. They reduced that down to 6.5. So that is the reason for the increase. We were doing really well, and so we were at 86% funded, and it'll be going down to 79% because of those changes, and we will increase the contribution to help fund our OPEB and our pension. We have proposed in the 2019 budget adding 5 positions, restoring some that were eliminated in 2008, 9, and 10, and then we're eliminating the public services superintendent to create 2 other ones. So that is the largest changes that are in the budget that's before you. Some of the capital improvement is a network infrastructure, and there's a copier, road and street construction. furniture and fixtures, but all big capital items always come back to the board for approval. Hearing no comments or questions, there's a motion of support to approve Resolution 2018-34 for the 2019 fiscal year budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. At this time, we can have public comment. People can go to the microphone and give their name and address for the record, and we have a 3-minute limit on that. Are there any public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which are the minutes of the November 20th work session, closed session, and regular meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Well, I was going to say statements.
Statements and checks included.
Yes, and statements and checks.
Sorry.
That's right. So there's a motion and support to approve the consent agenda. Are there comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there an attorney's report, Mr. Winters?
Yes, there is. A few items that can bring the board up to date, although the letters have kind of preceded some of the things I'll be discussing tonight. We have concluded the 14B court ASME negotiations. There hasn't been a tentatively approved contract, and if all goes as scheduled, we'll have that presented to the township board, the township clerk, to place on the December 18th board agenda. So that will be the last of the contracts, although we'll be starting probably on maybe this month with the firefighters. So their contract actually expires on December 31st. So with all the ASME contracts and Teamsters have been concluded, subject to ratification by the union and to the approval of the township board. In regards to the Ypsilanti Community Schools, we had a very, very positive meeting with their facilities director, Steve Burgess, this past week, and you have seen the demolition schedule for Kettering and Thurston schools. The contractor that we met with and the project manager, they're very, very experienced. They've done 75 demolitions throughout southeastern Michigan. Mike and his staff went over the certain types of requirements regarding work hours, site, fencing, things of that nature, but suffice it to say that they are going to move forward with the demolition of both those schools. I did request that they try and preserve the bronze dedication plaques inside those buildings, though they are historical markers. And some of the history of the Will Run School District is getting kind of lost in some of these demolitions, I'm afraid. And while the bronze plaque might not be enough, there's things in those buildings that probably could have been preserved, but it's too late now. But I do think that it does validate that there was a school board, there were people that were very, very committed to this community back during the 1950s and had the vision to see a neighborhood school be built, whether it was Kettering, whether it was Kaiser, whether it was Thurston, Home School, Ford School, Cheney School. But the ones I mentioned previously are the ones that were built primarily at a time when the auto industry was very, very booming, and those bedroom communities were also filled with auto workers. And I just believe that we should try and preserve at least some kind of a symbol that those schools were, they did exist. In regards to Kettering School, I talked with the attorney for the school and for the church today. There is a December 24th deadline that they have to see if they can obtain alternative financing. Even if they do, that does not preclude the board's authorization in regards to making sure that the outstanding NOV, which includes fire suppression installation, is dealt with But right now, we're just simply waiting to see what happens on December 24th. And both attorneys are well aware that that deadline is fast approaching, whether what the attorney for the church is. In regards to the Forbes cleaners, we have a conference call also scheduled this week with our state officials and consultant to try and make sure that we get through this lame duck session, the release of the funds needed to go forward with the ongoing demolition and remediation of Forbes cleaners. There was $775,000 or $750,000 that was approved in fiscal year 18. Another $500,000 has been approved for this fiscal year, but it's not yet been released. And there's a $2 million supplemental request, and all of this is for the cleanup, the remediation, and some other issues that have been identified on Davis Street. So this is a very, very high priority by the board that I've conveyed that to all the persons who may have an opportunity to weigh in on this funding issue, and hopefully we'll find out before the next board meeting as to where we stand vis-a-vis that request. I do think it would behoove the township maybe in January of this new year, just to do a look back in regards to the number of padlock lawsuits that have been initiated during the last several years. A lot of time and energy went into having that legislation amended that would give the townships legal standing to pursue padlock cases. I really believe that we are the only community that's taken advantage of this, and I can tell you right now that of all the cases that have been filed, there's been a success, and there's also been a learning experience, especially from the landlords and owners of the properties, that they cannot do business as usual in the township without being held accountable for what goes on inside the properties which they lease. We want landlords to be successful, but they have to do their due diligence in regards to how their property is going to be leased, who it's being leased to, and what is going on, and they can't just simply not pay attention to what's going on at the property. So I do think it'd be a good opportunity to hear from Mike's team and even Denny, because that's an important tool also for the ongoing neighborhood stabilization. In regards to the cell tower, we did receive the funds, the 176,400, and likewise we kept the 18,900 that we received in August. So that cell tower for this year is just shy under $200,000. I did do a kind of a very, very skinny research on street sweepers, and just found that one was in Wyoming that you could lease. The city of Wyoming actually leased one for so much per month that they could actually then use 80% of that lease cost to apply it to the purchase. I have no idea as to how big or how small it was, but I don't think we're going to be able to really do anything but either lease one or buy one, and maybe that's just the board's wisdom and discretion as to whether to pursue that. But I did provide the newspaper article that was shows that we weren't too far off the mark and why that might be a good idea. We still have on the table the 17.8 acres of what we refer to as Phase 2 of River Grove, and we need to have marketable title to this property to finalize the RFP. The RFP has been finalized and has not yet been brought back to the board because we don't have a marketable title. This is the property that came to the township in the midnight hour by Catherine McCleary, the treasurer, on December 29th to 30th in 2015, vis-a-vis a quitclaim deed. That quitclaim deed actually, she had foreclosed on that property twice. And so the second time, she had a clause in the quitclaim deed that says to the person that bought it, if you don't pay your taxes, we're not going to go to court. We're just going to take it from you and give it to the township. Well, we had no part of that. I mean, in terms, we had no part of the conversation, but the property is ours at this point in time. But for us to market it, we need a marketable title. And so we have a number of developers who want to finish Phase 2 with a product that's similar to what is in Phase 1. I have a pretty good idea as to what the property is worth per acre. Right now, Brian McCleary and I met with Margot from Campbell Title last week to discuss how we can get to that point where the title, do I file an action to quiet title? If I do, how many people in the chain of title do we need to name as a defendant? Catherine McCleary has, this property has already been subdivided into 75 lots, but it's been under one ownership. And in order for us to actually have that assurance, we want to review this, and she wants to charge us $7,500 or $50 per lot times 2. So again, under FOIA, we have requested of them to allow us to inspect the documents, because under FOIA, we have a right to inspect the documents. It doesn't require anything but us to identify the documents we wish to inspect, sit down and review, and if we actually then need to make copies of those, we'll go forward with that process. But again, I'm looking forward in 2019 to having this RFP in a proper form for the board, because I do believe the sale will exceed $200,000 based upon the per acre price. And then finally, we have received phone calls from Evan Pratt, who's heading up at the county level. He's trying to create this regional recycling center for all the reasons that the board's aware of. There is no China or other countries are not taking the recyclables as the market has dropped out completely. And so he's trying to figure out how we can establish a recycling center here in Washtenaw County that would probably at this point in time involve the City of Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti Township, City of Ypsilanti Township perhaps, and there's also opportunities for other communities to come in as well. I've got the documents. I've not yet met with Evan or his attorney, but just want to give the board a heads up that that has come up in regards to trying to figure out a solution to the issue of how do we handle recyclables on a countywide basis. So a lot of things are happening, and a lot of positive things are happening. But that's kind of the report for this evening.
All right. Any questions or comments, Mr. Winter? I'm glad to see the school buildings progressing as promised. A very good thing. The first item on our agenda under old business, it's a long one. It's a second reading of Resolution 2018-30, proposed ordinance 2018-483, and ordinance amending ordinance 74, Township Zoning Ordinance, so as to conditionally rezone 3160 West Michigan Avenue, 20.57 acres, parcel K11-18-340-001, from its current RM2 multifamily residence to a zoning district of P3 General Business Zoning District with voluntary prohibition of automotive uses as defined in the Township Zoning Ordinance, Section 306, and is described in a conditional zoning agreement, and request to approve a conditional zoning agreement between Myodrag Rakic or his assignee in the Charter Township of Ypsilanti to be recorded with the Washtenaw County Register of Deeds. Clerk Rowe?
I have a resolution 2018-30 that references ordinance 2018-483, rezoning of 3160 West Michigan Ave. And whereas at its regular scheduled meeting held September 25th of 2018, the Charter Township of Ypsilanti Planning Commission recommended that the Township Board approve a voluntary conditional rezoning request pursuant to MCL 125.3405 for a certain parcel of property comprising 20.570 acres, commonly identified as 3160 West Michigan Ave, parcel ID K-11-18-340-001, from the RM2 multifamily residential zoning district to B3 general business zoning district with prohibition of automotive uses as defined in Township Zoning Ordinance Section 306, and is described in a conditional zoning agreement to be recorded with the Washtenaw County Register of Deeds. And whereas proposed ordinance number 2018-483 rezones 3160 West Michigan Ave, parcel ID K-11-18-340-001 for RM2 district to B3 district zoning classification with voluntary prohibition of automotive uses as defined in the Township Zoning Ordinance, Section 306, and described in a conditional zoning agreement to be recorded with the Washtenaw County Register of Deeds. And whereas the Township Board of Trustees agrees that the rezoning is appropriate, now therefore it be resolved, the Charter Township Ypsilanti hereby adopts and incorporates by reference ordinance number 2018-483 attached hereto by reference in its entirety. I would so move adoption of the resolution 2018-30 and approval of the conditional rezoning agreement.
Support. We have a motion and support. Charlotte, would you like to give a brief overview?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this is a conditional rezoning agreement that is different than that first reading that you had last month in regards to the main purpose is creating an indoor-outdoor tennis facility. There's a time limit of 2 years on that phase 1, and then there will be a proposed phase 2 that's going to include but not limited to retail shops, offices, and restaurants, and there's no time limit on that development. This will be a conditional zoning agreement outlining also the prohibition of all automotive uses as defined in Section 306. And then this conditional zoning agreement will be recorded at the Washtenaw County Register of Deeds. And just a follow-up for all conditional rezonings, we are going to bring you a draft ordinance at the end of January or beginning of February to review. That's going to have a better defined processes for conditional rezonings.
Questions or comments from Charlotte? The petitioner, they're in the back. Are there any questions for the petitioner? I don't. For people in the audience, this is kind of exciting for the tennis facility.
Good evening, Tom Stackler. I'm with Real Estate One, representing the petitioner and broker representative. I was talking to my client, and you said you had some questions, or we don't have any other questions of you, other than would it be possible to, if we're all in agreement and the resolution passes, I believe we have some hard copies here. Is it possible to get that signed and done and copies so that we have copies then to go ahead and record?
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to maybe just tell a little bit about the project for people who have not heard.
Oh,
Yeah, well,
regarding the
it's
project is going to be a sports complex, primarily tennis. There may be some cross-training there, some outdoor courts are envisioned, and a campus there that would have try to preserve some of the trees for the shading and for screening from the noise and the freeway and the exit ramp there. That'd be phase 1. That'd be in the northern portion of the parcel. There are wetlands to the west, and then to the east there's a freeway ramp, and then to the south would be phase 2, which we hope to in the future perhaps use the land for some retail and restaurant space up there that may also kind of go with the kids or parents that are waiting for their kids there.
And this is on West Michigan Avenue?
Correct.
Right by the
gas station that's currently Zone B3 there already, so we'll be in behind that and then to
Right.
the east of that.
Okay, sounds like a good project, and there's a lot more people here, so I wanted them to hear what actually was.
Something's going on, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's always good.
it's exciting. Okay, no other comment or questions on this? This is an actual rezoning, so we have to do a roll call vote on it. Rowe?
Yes.
Eldridge?
Yes.
Ross William?
Yes.
Lovejoy Rowe? Stumbo vote yes. Doe?
Yes.
And Wilson?
Yes.
And the second reading is approved. As far as getting everything signed, I don't know. You can go talk to Lisa and see.
Okay. Yeah, we're prepared to do that.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to the township, and we look forward to seeing this progress. Under new business, item 1, we have the request approval agreement with Washtenaw County for the sub-award of federal financial assistance and the federal funding accountability and transparency form for funding for design and bidding of a bus stop shelter at Schooner Cove and South Huron River Drive.
So, support.
We have a motion and support to approve this strange agreement. It's an odd agreement.
It's weirdly written.
Mr. Winters, have you had the opportunity with a sub-recipient, right? Is that what-
It kind of follows the county's standard template that they use in these type of subrecipient type agreements and everything. So I believe right now I do believe it's in proper form for the board to execute. It's just that it's part of their CDBG, I believe, so what they require.
And this is for
Bus shelter,
the
right.
design of it, correct? The design of the bus shelter?
Yes.
Um,
Yes, it's for the design of the bus shelter. My understanding includes some easement work too.
I think we need to add that verbiage to it, Karen, in order to get the preparation of easement and additional survey. We can request the county to include it. They offered to include it in one of your emails that you
Yeah, it is included. It's in the agreement, right?
I don't see it. It says improvements to existing stormwater management, adjacent asphalt, addition of pedestrian cross.
What it is, and I didn't include it, I apologize. This is actually what we already approved OHM to do.
In order to get reimbursed for.
When we have to sign this is a federal requirement from HUD.
Yeah, I think in order to get dollars for preparation of easement and additional survey, we need to add that to the scope of services.
That's fine.
Madam Chair, do you, under Article 23, is that not, you don't think that would cover?
Well, it's just
Much about
scope of
easement?
services is under Article 2.
Because under 23, it's changes in scope or scheduled services. This is so weirdly.
I know, it's it's not as clear cut as it was. We just want to make sure that it includes that work as well,
Right.
if possible. I do think 15,000 is not enough for the work, so hopefully we can go back and get more dollars for it, which they've done that before, haven't they? CBDG?
Yes.
Yes, they have, so,
What's what OHM projected, but
yeah. Okay, so this is great to finally get this going, hopefully it has to be done in 2019 in order to have the bus stop in front of Schooner Cove, working with the property owners and getting,
So friendly amendment to include the easement work if Attorney Winters doesn't believe it's already covered under either Section 3 or 23.
it's fine with me.
so the motion was made by Rowe, supported by
Heather.
Gerald Rowe, with the friendly amendment to add it if necessary. I just want to make sure that's covered. So we have a motion and support to approve this. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2 is a request to approve the professional services contract between Ypsilanti Township and the Huron River Watershed Council for a term of January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2023, which is to be budgeted yearly in line item 101-780-000-001-000.
Move to approve.
Support.
Motion Doe, support Wilson. Would you like to give a brief presentation?
Sure. I won't make a presentation. I'll keep it very brief. I'm Rick Lawson. I'm a watershed planner with the Huron River Watershed Council. I've been working with the Middle Huron Partners for over 12 years now. I just wanted to give you just a brief overview for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with what we do and what we're asking for in this. The purpose of the Middle Huron Partners is to identify watershed impairments and improve the quality of the middle section of the Huron River. Most importantly, we're focused on Ford and Belleville Lake as the endpoints to that system. And the group was formed originally to work to reduce the phosphorus inputs and reduce the algae blooms that were occurring in Ford and Belleville quite frequently. We have had, over those 12 plus years, we've had some major accomplishments. We're really seeing positive progress, which is not easy to do in the environmental field. Our monitoring, which this group pays for, has seen significant phosphorus reductions. We are almost meeting the state's or the federal total maximum daily load for Ford and Belleville Lake. And in fact, the state is just now announced that they are revising or will be reassessing the TMDL. So we will know pretty soon whether or not we're actually meeting those requirements. We've also worked with some projects, joint projects, to control the levels within the lake, as you well know, because you pay to manage that dam at Ford Lake. We've facilitated numerous phosphorus reduction improvement projects, measurably increased watershed education throughout the watershed, which I think is contributing to some of the greatest decreases that we've seen in phosphorus, and provided lots of technical assistance to partners on various projects, permit compliance for stormwater. That's another aspect of what we're doing for the partnership as well. What I'm here to talk to you about is about every 5 years now, we redo the contracts and issue a new work plan to the partnership, to the various partners, local governments mostly, to then take back to their boards and make sure that we're still on track and add in any changes that we need to do. We generally try to set those about every 5 years and have a track to go at so that we're not constantly coming up in front of you guys. This year, there are some significant changes to the work plan. We've added coverage for macroinvertebrate sampling, which was covered with a myriad of grants previously, and it's getting harder and harder to fund. The partnership benefits from that data. It is part of progress evaluation monitoring. So we've added that in to the partnership as well. The City of Ann Arbor has requested that we include the cost of chemical analysis, which they had been previously donating to the partnership, and now they want that wrapped in and accounted for. The monitoring network has grown over the years, and so the costs have gone up as well. And then finally, the last large change is that there was request by a number of the partners to move our calendar from every other year production to an every year production, as the calendar does tend to change years on an annual basis. So those are the major changes that we have to you. But at this point, I'll just open up for any questions that you might have.
Questions or comments from board members? Are you addressing the PFAS issue that's in the Huron River? And
We are, as the Watershed Council, it's not part of this particular project.
Okay.
But we've actually been leading that initiative with our partners. And in fact, the lab that does our analysis is also the lab that originally discovered that as a problem. And then we helped with them raise that to the level of the state and got them to do additional testing and eventually found some of the larger culprits. So we're currently working with all of those players to try to get it all resolved and cleaned up and remove the fish advisory as soon as possible.
That's a very important issue to address. Also, we had one of our residents, I think several people probably forwarded it to you, but they had a very distinct, different, slimy substance on top of, near their home in their alcove. And so we forwarded that to, just to alert you guys to see if someone could investigate it. Is that something that you do investigate, or is that?
It depends on what it is. Usually, there are some times when it is appropriate for us to do the investigation. Often, there's another agency that is more appropriate to figure that out.
Is that MDEQ?
Yeah, often it's MDEQ, sometimes it's a local agency, sometimes it's a Water Resources, Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner's Office. They have a pretty broad jurisdiction. Sometimes it's a road commission. But we know all those jurisdictions, so we generally try to figure that out and then direct it to the right person.
Are you familiar with the issue I'm talking about? The resident?
I am, yes. Vaguely, I remember seeing that email.
So do we know if someone went and sampled it or looked at it?
Yes. In fact, the state did a fairly extensive sampling this year and the past year, 2017 as well, for microcystin, toxic algae, because there had been several notices of some blooms. I think that particular case was very local to that little cove on Ford Lake. And it was determined not to be toxic algae.
Okay, good.
If I recall correctly, but I can follow up with you if you like.
Yeah, then I'm sure you responded to the resident, but just to know, it was a dramatic change from previous years. They've been there 25, 30 years.
Right.
And with all the issues going on environmentally in our water, we just
Absolutely.
want to make sure. I'm sure you would have told us if it was an issue.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. I mean, probably everyone would have told us it was an issue. Well, I appreciate the work you do, and
Thank you.
this is once every 5 years. It's a little bit more money than what was previously, but you're doing more things as well. So,
Yes, that's correct.
yeah. And Charlotte Wilson, our planner, represents us at your meetings, and she highly recommends supporting it.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
All right, so we have any other questions or comments? We have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next item, number 3, is a request of Michael Radzick, the OCS Director, for approval of a professional service agreement with OHM to provide design specification, bid package, and oversee the bidding for the replacement of the emergency generator at the Law Enforcement Center in the amount of $18,900, which is budgeted in line item 266-301-000-931-015.
So moved.
Motion Eldridge, support Doe. Are there questions or comment?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I was just curious, is this something that would have fallen under the scope of Jeff Allen, if he was still here? Like just overseeing the project?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can he move back? That's all.
Well, we hire engineers to oversee it,
Yeah.
but there's usually there's a person designated, like
Yeah.
Mike or me or Wayne, to oversee the point person for the project. So, yeah.
We're working with Alan Zelenka. He's a very experienced electrical engineer with OHM. He's done many generator projects, including one recently in Milan, and he's currently working on something, I think, for YCUA at the Bridge Road station with some electric motors. This is for development of all the technical specs for the generator, the installation, the site work. I discussed with OHM whether or not we actually need them on site for construction observation. If we do, it's going to be extremely limited. In the absence of someone like Jeff, our building department staff and myself are going to pool together and do most of that work to save some money on this.
Thank you.
We have a motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next item is a request to appeal Ypsilanti Township Freedom of Information estimated processing fee. I don't know if we need a,
Just, yeah, according to the, our policies and procedures and guidelines we adopted, we need to either waive the fee, reduce the fee, use a written determination indicating the basis that supports the remaining fee, uphold the fee, and issue a written determination, or, well, hopefully you're not going to want more than 10 days, but you can do that also, too, if you want to.
Point of clarification, can this be discussed if I'd actually have moved it for discussion? Because I don't know if we skipped that, but I didn't hear that.
yeah, because it's not clear. We don't know what we're, yeah,
You talking about Robert's rules?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should,
yeah.
yeah, we should have a motion, you're right.
So moved.
Support.
So there's a,
So what are you moving?
I'm assuming we're moving
To
for
appeal.
discussion. That doesn't mean to
Oh, okay.
vote for it.
So a motion for discussion by Stan.
Correct.
Support.
Monica, support already.
okay. Discussion, trustee Eldridge,
I've tried to look at all this and listen to everybody and try to make sense of it as best I can. I have a couple of, I don't know if they're questions or concerns. I'll leave that to the clerk and applicant, but in trying to look at some of the I'm sorry, go ahead.
turn on your
The
mic.
motion was a motion for us to discuss it, right?
Right.
Because we didn't vote on that.
Correct.
So maybe we should vote on it. Stan made a motion to discuss the issue,
Correct.
And then Monica seconded, but we didn't.
but we didn't vote on that.
We often make motion, we don't need a motion support to discuss it.
I think they were doing
We
it
can
because of Robert's rules, and you normally have a motion before you discuss, but it's fine with me.
Yeah, point of clarification. Well, I knew before we could even talk about it, it had to be moved somehow, some way. So the question is whether it's moved for discussion or just moved, period. It needed to have a movement per Robert's rules, I believe. If I'm wrong, somebody please clarify me. Yeah.
There is no specific motion on the agenda, so there's nothing to really motion yet. We just, we agreed to discuss it before motion.
That's okay. So as I look at it, I'm looking at the memo first that came from Ms. Harris to the clerk. And I'm looking at the second bullet point where it speaks to the charge shall not be more than the hourly wage of the lowest paid employee. I know we had discussion earlier that there may not be a willingness to have employees within whatever office it might be look at their supervisor's emails. However, as I kept looking through that, and I looked at the information in our own policy and what's online, I don't find that there's an exemption for that at all. And even if we took that at face value and said we would like to abide by that and not have certain employees looking at emails, each of our full-time elected officials has a deputy in their office who's a confidential employee, so I would think they should have used their wage at the very minimum. And it also speaks to that when using that lowest paid employee, they don't even have to do the search, you just have to use their wage if they're capable. And there's nothing that indicates that they're not capable. It's a desire of ours, but not incapable of performing the service. So that was a question I had on that, and maybe I'm reading it wrong. in looking at the form from the clerk under reason number 2, it speaks to a 50% labor cost, but as I continue to read through that on the township policy, which is, I think, mostly adapted from the Township Association, it speaks to a contracted labor cost that will not exceed $48.90 an hour. And as I look at the ones on my computer, each of the pay rates exceeds $48.90 an hour.
Just point of clarification, what their references there is like if we had to hire an attorney, we can only charge $49. That's what that's talking about. It's like if we had to, or we had to hire OHM engineer.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
No problem.
Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, when we're talking about grievances and stuff, I don't understand if it's a union rep requesting information to prove or disprove a case, why our FOIA couldn't just be waived on those situations.
The board can do that.
Madam Clerk, and I'm sorry to interrupt the treasurer, that's where I was headed with the next comment, that certainly don't want to make this an all-encompassing blanket to cover everything in precedent, but in this case, I don't want to cease discussion, but I'm going to make a motion that in this particular instance, we waive the fees for those reasons I stated earlier as far as the cost and the cost charged based on the employees that conducted it. And there's just a lot that goes into this one. I just think we need to waive it in this case and then look at our policy, re-examine it, and everything that's led up to it. I don't want to get into all those details because they're not relevant tonight.
Is that question? Yeah, just because I have to put in the letter, I don't even know if the motion's going to pass, but when you say, because you originally said, which I was following your drift, that even though someone else did it, we could still charge like maybe what the lowest level, clerk gets paid, and I could follow that, and I could write that in the statement. But when you're actually waiving, you said the waiving fees for the reasons you gave the reason of the policy says it could be the lowest, and because we don't have anything that exempts like HIPAA rules or anything like that. So I could follow that we're charging, we could write that in there, that we're changing the amount because we're going to charge the lowest amount. But when you just outright waive the fees and then you made the statement for, as I stated, that didn't follow your original, doesn't follow what you said why.
I think,
I'll just make it, and I'll stop after this.
Yeah. Because
I would make a motion to waive it because in my opinion, we didn't follow the very policy we have in place.
Point of clarification, section 6.
You just need to be specific on that.
Yep, point of clarification, section 6 of the policy that we have here under waiver of fees. In the second paragraph, it says the township board may identify specific records or types of records it deemed should be made available for no charge or at a reduced cost. So I just wanted to bring that up for Trustee Eldred's motion.
Where are you at?
It's in section 6. It's under waiver of fees.
Madam Chair.
yes, Trustee Ross.
I would just like to make the point also that this does set precedent, like for labor relations purposes, like if we're going to waive this fee that's related to all grievances, this is definitely a policy that we all as a board need to revisit because this sets precedent for future requests that are related to disputes.
I'm not sure if it sets precedent.
I was just going to ask legal, does one instance set precedent or does there have to be multiple incidents to set a precedent?
Well, you have two different sections here. Under the section 6, you could, the one that Monica made reference to.
I would argue if I was you.
Is a waiver, township board may identify specific records or types of records it deems should be made available for no charge or at a reduced cost. So if you waive fees under that section, for example, and said that in the future, all records that fall into this category will be exempt for fees or at a reduced cost, that would be obviously binding similar situations in the future.
Right.
Section 9, where I think you're at for excessive fees appeal, simply says you can have 4 choices. You can waive the fee, reduce the fee, approve the fee, issue a notice, et cetera. So Section 9 appears to be on a case-by-case basis. Section 6, I think, would be more tied into a specific classification that would govern you if you exempted certain classification of FOIA types in the future. That would be a precedent. I mean, under Section 6, you would, that's why you're doing it.
You would create a new category.
You want to have a category
Yep.
A that's going to be exempt or at a reduced cost because the board so feels it's important to do that. But I think you're on Section 9 right now for excessive fees, but I don't necessarily see that whatever you do tonight would be precedent setting, but I think you might really look at Section 6 and Section 9 together to see if there's something you want to identify going forward.
And I guess that's where I was headed with, I just thought the fees were excessive based on what I've read. And if legal, pardon?
Of the policy.
Of the policy, of our specific township policy. And if Section 9, bullet point 1 on the front of the final page, that would be what I'm trying to indicate as best as I can, and that would be my motion.
Okay.
Support.
I didn't understand that.
So there-
What's a motion? Can you read it back?
Well, you
You had
had,
another motion up.
there was no motion support.
It wasn't a support, you're right.
Okay. So we,
So what's Stan's
my
motion
understanding,
now?
Stan's motion was under the appeal of an excessive FOA processing fee. He motioned to waive the fees because it didn't follow the policy.
And where's that at specifically?
Section 9,
No, what policy did we not follow?
he believes that the fees charged by the township to process a FOA request exceeds the amount permitted by state law or under the policy. He's saying that you should have charged for the lowest person in the,
Was capable in the office, whether they did it or not is what the law
I think
says.
that's,
Whether they did it or not, if they were capable of performing the act, that's.
We haven't done it yet. So are you suggesting we do it under the lowest fee?
he,
No, I'm
his motion
suggesting
is to
waiving it
waive
in this instance and providing the material at no cost.
based on the fact that the policy wasn't followed on the cost for the lowest employee that could have performed the job.
We haven't performed it yet, so you can't say that. We haven't done it yet.
All the information that's been presented and discussed for over an hour indicated there was an hourly rate
I know what we,
charged.
Madam Chair.
earlier tonight, she said she wanted to pull the US, she didn't want, she wanted to actually, but, I mean, she hasn't rewrote that, but said she wanted to just review the documents.
Madam Chair, can we
Point
call
of clarification, the motion was initiated and seconded, so it should be called for a vote.
Well, to end discussion, we have to vote on that.
Yeah,
So,
yes.
Gerald Rowe? Eldred?
We don't do roll call, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we do.
This is Heather, Harold, you made the motion and Monica supported to end debate. Sorry. I had to get that down.
Gerald Rowe?
Yes.
Eldridge?
Yes.
Ross Williams?
Yes.
Rowe?
Yes.
Stumbo votes no. Rowe?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're voting on the actual motion to waive, read what back?
Or just tell me what it is so I can write
Make your
the
motion.
motion, yeah.
To waive the fee for the FOIA request.
The motion would be to waive the fee for the FOIA request inasmuch as the cost that were indicated inappropriately exceed what's in our own policy as far as the labor cost that would be affiliated to a capable employee to perform the duties.
All right,
And looking at Section 9 of our township policy, bullet point 2 on the final page, which indicates that we have the right to waive the fee if believed to be excessive.
Support.
It's on the tape.
No, I know, I just had a
Okay.
comment, I had a comment, if it's all right.
Comments, we called.
No, I just,
No, there, we can't comment. They call the motion. And you just asked for clarification on the motion. So we have a motion and support
well, I can bring it up later,
to,
because it's a different policy for me.
we have to vote on this motion.
Right, that's fine.
Okay. We have a motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I just want to say that we need to get clarification with Karen Wallen and Travis, because it's my understanding, the reason we use Karen's numbers is because no one else can do that. Travis sends it to me all the time. Whenever I say I want something, he'll say, I have no authority to do that. You have to get with Karen Wallen on that.
Okay.
Madam
For data
Supervisor.
for data dumps, we need to get a policy
So we'll,
in writing on data dumps.
yeah, we'll work on that part.
Yeah.
Madam Supervisor,
'Cause otherwise, we're going to have the same exact thing's going to happen again.
can I,
It's been approved.
oh, okay,
To
that's what I was
waive-
going to say. What am I?
Right, so your request has
Okay.
been approved.
Thank you so much.
Can you just clarify how you want the information? Because you said earlier that you wanted it on the drive, then you said no, you wanted to review it.
We get that tomorrow or whatever. We've carried enough time on this.
Just send me an email, tell me how you want it, Mila.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the Resolution 2018-33 for the appointments for boards and commissions.
So move.
Support.
Motion Lovejoy Rose, support Eldridge. Any questions or comment?
Madam
Oh.
Chair, what was the member of the zoning board that's being replaced?
What was the number
What
for,
was the member of the zoning board that's being replaced? Because you have one that's moving into a permanent position instead of
yeah,
the alternate?
Pete Graham declined to go back on the ZBA.
Okay,
So I did ask him if he would consider being an alternative.
okay. Thanks.
We have a motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is Resolution 2018-40, participation in the Redevelopment Ready Communities, which is an RRC program.
So move.
Support.
Motion Rose, support Wilson. Discussion?
Just real quick, I just wanted to, Charlotte's not here anymore, but I just wanted to make sure I pointed out the work that Charlotte and also Sarah Jo has done in order to recognize Ypsilanti Township as a five-star community with East City. So I know that's a little different from from what we're talking about here, but I just wanted to put it up under that item, so thank you.
Yeah, she's doing an excellent job. And
Yes, definitely.
We have a motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item is Budget Amendment 17. Clerk Rowe.
I have a motion to offer that we increase the general fund by $6,545 to $10,970,812 and approve the line item changes outlined. That's basically finalizes the Tyler Dam project. Move to increase the nuisance abatement fund by $3,000 to $31,100 and approve the line item changes outlined. That's for noxious weeds, which is basically a pass-through because we pass those on to the property owners. So moved.
Motion Rose, support Doe. Any questions or comment? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There's no
Motion to
other
adjourn.
business. Motion to adjourn would be in.
No move.
Motion Doe, support Gerald Rowe. All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
It's going to Heather Rose's birthday, and so in 2 days, so we were going to go out tonight if anyone's interested to celebrate Heather's birthday.